What up, all my lovely Nazarenes? Today we begin a brand new series called the Vedas, and I think that there won't be a more important time as we move into this new year, as we move into this new age of culture, moving away from civilization. I wanted to be the one that in detail brings you the source of who we are, the source of where we come from. And there isn't a more extensive tradition, there isn't a more extensive culture as the Vedas. So today will mark our first step to bringing back the Vedas. If some of you ask, why am I not specifying that these are the Slavic Vedas? My answer is simple. There are no Slavic or Hindu or any other kind of Vedas. And Vedas, which means to know, is not a religion. It's not a knowledge. It's not even a source of information. Don't fall for the same dogma trap that we have been blinded by for all of these decades. And the reason why I say decades, we will get into also later in detail. But you should know that the Vedas are a genetic memory, a vibration, a frequency that will trigger your genetic memory to bring out of you who you truly are and where you come from. It will explain to you the difference between the I and the soul and the consciousness and so on and so forth. But even to say that the Slavs were mainly the keepers of the knowing as our world came into being is also not a correct way to say it, because Slavo Aryans were also divided into four subgroups, if you will, which were the Darians or the Dariti, the Kharians or the Khariti, the Svetlorusy or the Light Russos, or the Rasens, Rasene. But we will get into all of these details more as we go along. Were and are the Vedas the only source of the knowing? The answer is no, because worldwide, to somehow save the knowing from our common enemy, our ancestors passed down the knowing by skazy in Russian. But even in Russian, that has been hijacked the language, but is maybe one of the best languages saved worldwide from our ancestors. They added skazy, they added the ending and made it into skaski. And to the world, it simply translates as fairy tales. A good example of one of these people that passed down and kept the knowing in the skazy or in these tales were someone like Pushkin. I don't want to get into the whole story of Pushkin, but if you look at the life history of Pushkin, you will notice that he was raised by his grandmother, which was one of these gatekeepers of the knowing, if you will, because in the ancient world, the keepers of the knowing were always the women. But we will get into all of this later, and that's why you find all of these fantastical stories in the tales of Pushkin. And if you look at these tales, which were a way for the Vedas to stay alive throughout all this time. And if you ask me what time, we'll talk about that later. Also, you can find that these skazy or tales all over the world, from the Scandinavians and Nordic sagas to Gaelic in Ireland to the Native American stories, We can find these all over the world, and by examining them closely, we can see they tell us of the same Vedas, or the knowing, except names might be different, as you can imagine. If you ask why were the Slava Aryans gatekeepers of the Vedas, mainly why were the Aryan tribes, as you can even look it up on Google, that the Aryan tribes took the Vedas to India at one point? The answer is simple, but it also needs more examining, which we will do later. But the simple answer for that is because the coalition, the cosmic coalition, which we will break down later bits by bits, I promise to all of you. But, and again, you have to remember, I'm trying to speak in modern tongue right now, but the cosmic coalition of these Aryans people, or narod, and not to be confused by the master race Aryans that has been dumped into our head. But these Aryans, these coalitions of Aryans, had access to the most astral worlds. And in the Vedas, I'm speaking about the text now, it tells us which people of our world had what and to how many access to the astral worlds and dimensions. It breaks this down in great detail. And again, we will get into all of this later. Even within the Slava Aryans, each subgroup were good at one thing or good at another. For example, it's been said that the Darians, the Dariti, were the most technologically advanced out of the four. The Harians, the Hariti, were great warriors. But again, we will get into all of this in greater detail as we go along. It is also important to know that the ancient Vedic world, the keepers of information, as mentioned above, were women. This is where you get the word Baba, which the West knows as babushka. But Baba, or as they say in India, Baab, was a sage or a guru in modern tongue. But women, or Baba, was the ones who tended to the household. But more importantly, the woman was supposed to pass down the knowing to the children. It will be very difficult to relate all of this to all of you because the English language created by the Vatican and spread by the Roman rule lacks the same vibration. But I know that those that are supposed to receive this with their soul will receive it that way, and will receive it with the way that it was left for us and passed down to us. Slavic knowledge keepers, we call them Rahmans. Many of them don't agree with me that I'm doing this, but I know that our ancestors unified the world with the Vedas. This is how they came to Atlantis and later Lemuria and Egypt and so on and so forth. For many thousands of years, we lived in peace, unified, until, of course, Kali Yuga, or the night of Svarog, which, of course, the enemy used that time to attack our souls and our consciousness. And so, since then, everything has been rewritten. And luckily, Slavic languages survived, and the word history directly translates as Tore, which means from the Torah. This is why I keep saying the biblical text became a script which was played out on the reality stage we call our world. So much was changed. Even stories of Khazaria are so twisted, but it looks like everything was changed at a very fast pace. And all of these holes or clues and stories were left for us to pick up. And then We in 2012, as YouTube was changing and information started coming out in visual and audio form, we were thrown a bone by the name of Tartaria, which I already explained was another way to make us forget that there was a Rus, a magical Rus. And why is this important? Because the Veda keepers of Rus unified the world. And so it looks like that Napoleon War of 1812 was in fact a civil war that divided our world to before and after. But again, all of this will be explored in great detail in this series. I also urge everyone to do your own research, but not through YouTube videos. A lot of you maybe sometimes think that, oh, Nas is being a hater, but by pointing fingers at viral YouTubers and saying they became part of the agenda, they're controlled opposition. But the reason why I do this and say this is because most of these YouTubers read some articles online, put it together sloppy, and the reason you get attracted to it because it fits into your worldview. When I say do your own research, I mean explore documents, explore them in many languages, do translations, start reading. I would never say this is correct or that is wrong unless I spent many years exploring and studying and accepting back the Vedas. I was first introduced to the idea of, let's say, strawman theory back in 1998 when I was 13. And shout out to Volodya Tereshchuk. And you see, Volodya was someone that came to America. He was 19 years old and I was 13 at the time. And someone told him to come look for me because there weren't many Ukrainians in our, neighborhood, if you will, in our city. And he came to find me. And I found out later that Volodya, the reason why he went through this radical change in his life is because he was betrayed by his closest people and his whole world crumbled on him. And then in one of these villages in Ukraine, he was approached by a Rahman and he was given clues to the Vedas. And then I was blessed enough to meet him the way that I did. Why I mentioned this? Because no strawman and no Roman rule or anything does not command you, nor does it rule your life. There is only one universal law, as we call Kone, and Vedas break down the different aspects and the foundations of this Kone, down to the smallest details of what is karma, how does karma break up into personal and genetic and financial and universal. But all this again will come later as we go on in this series. Also, things like the word matrix was thrown at us at one point and is telling us of a prison world. But I would remind you the word matrix or matrica in Slavic comes from the word mother. And that fundamentally will change the way you look at our world. And you will forget that they try to tell you that it's a prison world. But again, all of this later, step by step. An important note I thought I want to let you know, to see and understand, I'm not doing this for my own benefit. Because as you all see, we are being shadow banned, we're being ridiculed. And I could have ran with the Ukrainian propaganda or the Christian one. I mean, I did almost become a theologian with historic and philosophical background. But instead, my wife and I have made this sacrifice because we know that we are on the right path at the right time. And I know that the Vedas belong to the world. And again, the Vedas is internal. So when I say research or study. I should have said go internally, and that's where the Vedas live. So you can help us out in any way you can. If this helps you, you can spread the word. You can tell someone about it so we can get stronger together. I'm sending much love, unity, and blessings to all of you. And I know this will reach your hearts and give you a boost in your own life. I also want to remind everyone that starting on Friday, once a week, we will have live streams where we can break down a lot of these words. People will be able to get on live and communicate with me and with us, and we can explore the Vedas together. We can explore any other topic that you want. We can explore the language and what this means or that means. So I will still try to see what will be the best time, because some of you are overseas. So I'll figure out the best time to do this live stream. So I want to thank everyone for being a part of this network that we have created. And I want to send you all the love, the unity, and just remind you to stay strong. This is why the enemy is scrambling right now. They're going crazy because, again, we have moved from the civilization to the culture, Cult Ra age. And when I speak of culture, I don't mean some costumes or songs or anthems. Again, I'm speaking of the Cult Ra, the connection to our Mother Earth, the connection to the universe and our creator, the one God creator. So again, I thank you. I take off my hat, and any questions that you have, please send them to me. Yours truly, NazareN.
The Vedas. Chapter 1.
In the summer of the priestess of fire, on the 576th circle of life, from the great migration from Daria, according to the circular year of our number god, Chislobor, on the day of the 3 moons, revered and Irian Asgard, learn from the children of the great race and the descendants of the heavenly family about the ancient times, about the ancient wisdom kept by the priests, about the beginning of everything to people known, and for future times in Haratia inscripted by Darun Virid, in the glory of the gods, in the greatness of the family. May you comprehend with your heart the greatness of the world. Through that, the son of the sorcerer Sladahor, kept in the Darian family of Parda, will tell. Once upon a time, or rather then, when there were no times, there were no worlds and realities perceived by us. People there was, without incarnating, only the great Ramcha. He manifested himself in the new reality, and from the perception of the new endless infinity, he was illuminated by the great light of joy. And then the endless new eternity appeared in the new reality, born. An infinite number of its manifestations appeared. So that appeared which we people perceive as the spaces of the worlds Yav, Nav, and Prav. as in the city of the gods, and Asgard, Irisk, and the confluence of the sacred rivers Iria and Omi, near the great temple Ingland, at the sacred stone Alater, descended from the Whiteman heavens divine chariot. Great radiance and flame surrounded her when she fell to earth. We gathered to Whiteman of the Heavenly One, Karian and Darian clans, the clans of the Rasanov and Sviatorus, leaders and warriors of all clans of the great race. Silver-haired sorcerers gathered, and the Magi of the many wise, and the servants of the one God. We gathered around the Whitemans, sat down in rows. For many days the gods were glorified, and Whitemane opened, came out of it in the flesh of the light God of heaven. River God is ever beautiful. I came from Urai, earth, from Svarga, heavenly, where the Iri flows light, in the gardens of Viria, near Asgard, heavenly. I am Perun, the thunderer, Svarojic, son. Listen, people and warriors of the clans, my human words. Listen to the teachings of my words. Ratibor, a warrior from Rod, spoke to Perun, Sviatorusov. Tell me, bright leader, is there death for the warrior of our clans? Perun answered the warrior, there is no death for warriors of the heavenly family. Any obvious or secret doubt, hearts, God most high, guardian of the worlds, Svarok's father and my grandfather, the best of all the wise, will resolve. I know that the wisdom of the gods is eternal, who having become a teacher, even if the great, I told the secret, we do not blame the gods, for there is no death for them. And the people ask Thunderer, many wise, you tell us, Svarojis, tell me why the servants one God and the pilgrims of God, through knowledge of the Vedas, they want to achieve immortality. You tell us, is there death in the world of revealing, or is everything immortal? Which of the two is true? Svarojic answered them, correct both, but only in error singers teach about death. People, I call deception death, and by no deception I call immortality. The legs perished in self-deception. Without deception, being is achieved in the rule, and death does not devour like a lynx. Born, perceived, she has no shapes. You are surrounded by death, but you won't find it for yourself. Other people believe that the Udrich is God of the dead, different from death, and your journey to the world of rule immortal. It is in your souls and spirit abides. This same God reigns in the world of the ancestors. He is good to the good, but not to the bad. He is good by the command of Udrich. In children of man, anger, delusion, and death taking the form of greed. Driven astray by the self, man does not have unity with the soul reaches. Lost people are at the mercy of death, move along this road, and having died again and again, they end up in the Navi world. Feelings go astray behind them. That's why death is called Marion. Getting carried away by your actions in pursuit of their fruits, they continue, go in that direction and do not overcome death. Instead of striving for righteous goals, as the conscience of people calls, child of man on Midgard, What is born will begin to rotate in the circle of the lights, and on this path of his death awaits. This is a great misconception. Feelings uniting with vain goals, moving to hell along a futile road, struck by connections with the vain goals and thinking about them day and night. Your innermost self will begin to worship, reveal to the external world. In the revealed world manifested by Rod, the first thing that strikes people is this is the desire of someone else. Soon it entails anger and lust. These three creatures of the dark, foolish people are led to death, and in the world of revealing, only persistent people in whom conscience rules by steadfastness, death is always conquered. Seething with aspiring thoughts, calming the feelings, neglect with them is necessary fight. For such there is no death, for they overcame passions with knowledge and suppressed death, and man pursuing lust, going after passions, perishes. But having won vicious desires, get rid of all ashes, a person blows away passions. This will be our first part of the Vedas. Again, we will explore all of these words and break them down in the live streams that begin this Friday. I will still post about the time. One very important thing to note from here is when we say the God number or Chislo Bog, it's because all of these sacred geometries and sacred mathematics and numerologies in our ancient traditions, we had a God that manifested all of these things within us. That will just be one small note that I leave. Again, we will explore all of this and more. And as we go along, the Vedas will open up to you. I'm only reading the very first part. And also, please note that I am translating this into English. A lot of the sense will be lost in translation. But again, this is supposed to trigger your genetic memory. So blessings to all of you, and Slava RA.